Hello my loves and welcome back to my channel. Today's a very exciting day for me. Technically tomorrow is because I'm filming this the day before my new book launch, The Empress Codes, 6 Codes to Living Your Most Pleasurable, Powerful, and Prosperous Life. So this book, I'm going to share a little bit in this video, my intention behind it and how it even came to be, because I'm writing 3 other books right now, and this book just basically, I want to say magically because it feels magic, it was just channeled through me, and this feels like, just letting you know, this is the proof copy, the very first copy I've ever got. That's why the border's on it, but you can kind of see, I'll post the actual book anyways. This book feels really vulnerable for me to share because it was created out of the most recent dark night of the soul for me, and a very, very dark and challenging time, which was last year in California. I just arrived in California again, but last year during the pandemic hit me very hard. It hit my career very hard. It hit my lifestyle because if you've followed me, I've been traveling full-time for 11 years. And I've been to over 60 countries. I've just been the solo traveler for many, many years, always going to the next country. And all of a sudden, it was just me. At first, I was stuck in Australia when the pandemic first started, and all my events there were canceled. So last year, I had a whole schedule of events, and it was my first time doing really big public speaking, which I was very excited about. I was booked out for the whole year. And then all of a sudden, everything was gone, and I didn't have anything online at that point. So it was really difficult financially, it was difficult spiritually, emotionally, every level. And I won't get too into that, but within 1 week last year, I was in a car accident. I had COVID, and that hit me very hard too. It was just like a huge, I actually have my tarot cards here, and like the last year was just the Tower card. If you know tarot, it was the Tower. It was total destruction of everything in my life as I knew it, from my health to my work, to connecting with others, to community. It was just me alone in a room for really the last year. I'm finally back in California around friends again, but it was just me for a while, and trying to figure out, like, basically pick up the pieces of my life that had just crashed down. And for a few months after the accident and getting COVID, it was just me alone in a room. I couldn't do yoga. I really feel like it was just me and my consciousness. So at that time, for 2 months, just in a room alone, no human contact, and then continued with no human contact for about 4 months after that. It was just me and my mind and my consciousness. And at that time, I realized this is a dark time, and how am I going to get out of it? I don't really have a support system outside of myself, so I have to come inward. Basically, I came back to all of the tools that I've learned in the past decade of traveling around and, searching for the meaning of life and dabbling in different cultures and religious beliefs and spiritual beliefs. I've just been a student of anyone that I've come into contact with. And this book is basically, it just came through me. I wrote it in a month, and then of course the editing took a while, but it just came through me in a month, and it's all the tools. And it does feel very vulnerable because I share about what happened and some parts of myself that I have never shared. If you're on my YouTube channel, you know that I do share a lot here. That was my intention when I came on here, to share rawly and openly, in order to help others heal and to uplift others by sharing my own difficult times and challenges. So that's what this book is, and it's full of practices. And this book's a little bit different from my other offerings, as I'm really diving into tantra and spirituality and different practices in that realm, but also in the material. So abundance and prosperity, how to call that in, and realizing that spirituality doesn't mean that you can't be financially abundant, as this is, kind of like a myth in the spiritual world. So I dive into basically every aspect of life in this book. So my very first book called Awakening the Goddess. This is my 5th book now, but if you read my book Awakening the Goddess, that's kind of the way that I see that. That's like the introductory to spirituality, to what I knew at that time. And now a few years later, this is the Empress code. So I feel like we've moved up from awakening the goddess, which is like awakening Shakti within us, and now we've gone up to the Empress codes, which again, my first book felt like just a divine download. I wrote that in a month as well. Same with this one. So those two are very special to me because they were the 2 books that I didn't plan. They just came through, and that's how I know. That's why I feel confident in sharing them, and that's why I know I have confidence that it will help other people, because I was just simply a messenger for this divine energy and codes to come through me. And Awakening the Goddess was based around the Hindu archetypes, so the goddesses in Hinduism, which I study a lot, and I have a really great respect for that path. Of course, it wasn't about all of the goddesses, but I think there's about 6 or 8 archetypes. I can't remember. But the main archetypes in Hinduism of Shakti, of the divine feminine. So in this book, I'm actually using the archetypes of the tarot, and I use specifically the Thoth tarot. So for example, here's one of my favorite ones, and I share about her in the book, the Queen of Discs. And actually, I love this card so much because she's actually looking back at the desert and this winding road in the desert. And I felt like I talk about my journey leaving California last year, which was I had COVID and unexpectedly had to drive from San Diego to Canada with COVID, extremely sick, my vehicle packed up to the top with all of my belongings because I was meant to move, and because of COVID, I couldn't get into the country I was meant to move to. So it was just this big thing. And I look at this card, she's standing on a pineapple, which represents being fruitful, and now she's like this queen on top of the pineapple looking back on this crazy road. And I share in the book that this reminds me of my drive. So this is actually my favorite card of this deck right now. So there's 6 different codes and 6 different divine feminine archetypes. So the first one is I own my emotions and embody my pleasure. And that is the Queen of Cups, who represents emotions. So we dive into honoring our emotions and emotional intelligence, and also our pleasure, so tantra, and how to live a pleasurable life, how to bring pleasure into the everyday activities rather than it being something outside of that, and really how to cultivate this pleasure, the sense of inner pleasure and enjoyment from within, so that we're not looking outside of ourselves, relying on things outside of ourselves to give us joy, to give us pleasure, to give us self-love. Code 2 is I cut through the veils of illusion with my sword of clarity and discernment. So that is the Queen of Swords, and I have different names for all of them. She is the fierce femme. Her element is air, and if you know the picture, she's very Kali energy, as she has sword in one hand and a head in the other one, which represents, same as in Hinduism, it represents the ego, the mind. So she's cut through illusions. She's cut through the masks that she wears in society. And now she's her fully liberated, authentic self. So that code is all about releasing the roles that we play, the labels that are being given to us, to come back to embodying our true, authentic selves. And also just not putting up with bullshit and learning how to create strong boundaries. And with the element of air, it's also about reprogramming our subconscious for success and for abundance. And then we have code 3, which is the queen I was just talking about, the Queen of Discs. My body is a sacred temple. I magnetize and manifest all of my desires. And she is the magnetic creatrix, and her element is earth. So in this code, we talk about our relationship with our temple body. We dive into the material world and the sacredness of the material world, of money, of abundance. And we learn how to call these things in energetically, as well as putting in intentional, inspired action. Code 4 is I own all parts of myself and wear my past as armor. I decide who I am and the world adjusts. That's the Queen of Wands, who I refer to as the mystical baddie, and her element is fire. So we talk about sacred sexuality during this code, and basically how to burn away everything that we're ready to release. Again, there's a lot of Kali energy in this journey, and it's really about accepting our shadows. So we go into the shadow and how to release shame around our past, and how to move forward from there, as well as opening up to even more pleasure and more fun, how to make this life more playful, and again, embodying your authentic self fully, and just finding that bad bitch energy within. Code 5, I play within the mystical realms and align with my highest Empress frequency. And that is the priestess, who I call the sacred sorceress. So we talk about some of the mystical arts as tarot and astrology during this code, as well as different spiritual practices that we can welcome into our lives, and also the importance of connecting to spirit, what that even means, and why that's so important at this time on our planet, and what it means to be a spiritual woman. And then finally, code 6 is I reclaim my throne and rule my empire as a fierce feminine leader. And this is the Empress, the radiant ruler. And here it says, the Empress does not rule the world, she is the world. So the Empress does not sit tall on her throne looking down on others, but this is the Empress who cares about humanity, who is here to help uplift the collective consciousness. So she invites you to stand tall next to her. She's not looking down on anyone. And in this code, I share more about feminine leadership, moving into a powerful new age that we are, which is the feminine era. You know, in many cultures that I've visited, it's been known that we're shifting into this feminine era, which I talk a lot about in Awakening the Goddess. And it's not about overcoming the masculine, but coming back to a balance between the two, as our societies, if you follow me, you probably already know about this, but our societies have been very masculine to a toxic level for a long time. You know, manifests as greed and wars, and society based on competition and greed and how much money can I make, and identifying with the end goal and identifying with materials. So the feminine is more nurturing and is more outside of just herself. Where can I make my existence also about benefit the collective as well, rather than just myself? So I share about that. I also share about sisterhood, the importance of sacred sisterhood. I also go into womb medicine and healing the heart. Really, this is a full lifestyle transformation, if you want it to be, through this book. And I truly hope that it serves anyone whose life it goes into really well. I hope these tools help to uplift you and empower you if you get the book, as much as it did for me in one of my darkest hours. And again, I share about it in the book. I'm really excited to share this with all of you. If you have any questions, comment below. If you're watching this in real time, for the next 48 hours, I want this book to be accessible to most. So I've made it the lowest price that Amazon will allow me to. It's $5.55 for the next 48 hours. And the Kindle ebook is $4.44. So if you want to grab it, definitely do it right away. And if you're watching this later, I hope you love it. I hope you all love it. Again, if you have any questions about any of the topics in the book, you can comment on this and I'll read it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this far. And thank you for being open to my message and really allowing me to share in this way. Writing is my greatest passion. Talking like this is never comfortable for me, to be honest. Some people are great communicators with their voices. Even through my videos, I love creating content for you, but it just doesn't come naturally to me. I feel in my element when I'm writing and when I'm sharing my words. So thank you, thank you, thank you for allowing me to do this. And if you want to dive deeper, if you read the book and you want to dive deeper, I also have the Empowered Empress Mystery School, and I'll be doing another training. I'll actually be opening up for registration at the end of this month, if you're watching in real time, again at the end of November. So you can hop onto my website and look at KrystalAranyani.com/EEMS for the information and to join the wait list. We dive into these topics a lot more deeply, and yeah, a lot more practices and everything. It was actually this book and that program just came through me, and it's been really beautiful to watch the transformation so far in our last journey that we did. And it is a 12-week journey, and my website, I have to change it a little bit because I'm actually expanding it from 6 weeks to now 12 weeks. So depending when you watch this, it might not be updated. Thank you so much, loves. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. I appreciate your presence so much, and I really, really hope you love this book if you bring it into your life.